Man, devastating news out of Phillies spring training yesterday. If you weren't watching, don't go back and watch it. It'll break your heart. Rhys Hoskins, done for the year before it even started. We were gonna talk all Eagles football today, but we're gonna start Phillies. Then we will get to Eagles and free agency, Ezekiel Elliot, Bijan Robinson, all the different Eagles rumors. Trending in the AM, it starts in 30 seconds.
Gets around in front. And Philadelphia has it.
And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM, right here on DSM Media. We're live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow on all social media platforms. Do me that favor, head over to the DSM Media YouTube page. Hit the like button, the subscribe button, turn notifications on. It's the best place to also get interactive with the show. Drop your comments, thoughts, questions, concerns. Man, we've got some heartbreaking conversation to start the show off. It's Friday. We're supposed to be happy, positive, and in a good mood, yet we've got to talk the heartbreaking Rhys Hoskins injury yesterday. Happened in spring training. As Brandon chimed in, I don't even think you can replace Rhys. I have always appreciated it. I mean, this is summing up what we're going to literally talk about here for the next 20, 30 minutes of this show. Rhys Hoskins, torn ACL. If you haven't watched it, don't go watch it. You could just tell right away as soon as the injury happens that it was not going to be good. I'm your host, Phil Stifel. I got Jason Voorhees sitting here next to me today. Good morning, Jason. Without thinking about Rhys, how you feeling today?
I mean, other than that, I'm good. But that's just been, I've been all upset, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, Rhys Hoskins, honestly, is one of my favorite players on the team. He always has been, obviously, since he came up. We were talking before the show about, when he got brought up in that one.
First onto the scene, he was hitting home runs every single night. You just never knew when he was going. Where he was just going to hit 2-3 every night. It was crazy, and it's devastating. It was the last year of his contract. It was probably his last year in Phillies and in red pinstripes. And the thing, Jason, that really gets to me, and I know we were talking about this off the air. Before we get into the how to replace him, Brandon, we just got to talk about Rhys himself a little bit. And everybody, except for me and you, Jason, there are a few others on our side. Everybody was so ready to move on from Rhys Hoskins. They were calling for him to be benched in the playoffs, even though he was hitting big home run after big home run because of one or two defensive errors. Offseason, get rid of him, trade him, whatever. Put Derek Hall out there. Now Rhys Hoskins goes down, and every Phillies fan's like, oh, shit. We don't have a replacement for Rhys Hoskins. Everybody that was all for Derek Hall, the starter, is now, oh, shit, you got to go get somebody else. That to me is pissing me off because everybody was so anti-Rhys Hoskins. And as you said before the show, you don't know what you got till it's gone. Well, Rhys Hoskins is gone now. And not only is he a 30 home run hitter, doesn't he drive in 80 runs? He's an 840, 850 OPS career. Not only all that, he's the longest tenured Philly, I think. He's one of the clubhouse leaders for the last 5 years. He's one of the most well-liked and respected guys in that locker room. So you're losing all of that. And that's not even quantifiable, the person that you're losing.
Yeah, and then not to mention what he does for the community. I mean, his muscular dystrophy charity work, and he I know he does stuff with dogs. Like, the guy's just you can't we've talked about it. You can't quantify it. Every player, I mean, I heard Kyle Schwarber yesterday, come out and say, this is a huge loss. Like, this is coming from Kyle Schwarber, quote unquote, one of your leaders. And he's saying, it's almost like it's just as big a loss as losing a Harper, in that maybe he's not as good as Harper on the field as far as his production, but what he brings to the team overall. Mm-hmm. And you're right. It's like, you don't want to just like go into like how you're going to replace the guy, because it's not easy to replace somebody like that consistently. I know we talked about how the Phillies lineup is very inconsistent as a whole group, and Rhys Hoskins tends to be inconsistent when, as far as like day to day. But when you look at his numbers year to year, he's extremely consistent.
Absolutely.
It's 30 home runs.
I've been preaching that for years on this show. Look,
it's like, okay, you know what you get, and to lose that bat right now when you already said that it's important to see these guys like him perform to hold up while Harper's out. Now all of a sudden you're like back to square one because we signed Trey Turner. Oh, we have a great lineup, but now you're losing a guy that's like a big part of that lineup.
What's interesting is, you weren't watching the game. I didn't even have the game on at first. I had turned it on because I'd seen a tweet. Matt Gelb was the first one to tweet it. They're bringing the cart out for Rhys. So I'm like, oh crap, let me get my laptop out. Let me get the TV on. Let me get the game on. And as they're carting him off the field, and as that rest of that next inning starts, you just see this dejected look. The cameras kept panning the dugout. Bryce Harper's in the dugout. Schwarber was in the dugout. Everyone's just got this, sad, because that's what Rhys means off the field to these guys, and that is not quantifiable. And I'm sure after he has the surgery soon, and after he's able to move a little bit again, I'm sure he'll be back in the dugout and locker room and cheering the team on, at least on home games and stuff like that. He's not going to stay away from the team completely. But that's a big blow to the emotional, part of a team, losing a guy like Rhys Hoskins.
Yeah, and then to lose him, obviously in spring training, I mean, I don't want to say there's ever a good thing, but I guess the only good thing is you're not losing him like 4 weeks into the season.
That's true.
You at least lose him now, and you can kind of come up with a game plan.
Cole's comment here is great. His grandpa was at the game, and the building, the life of the building was sucked out. I could only imagine, if I could feel the life being sucked out through the TV screen, I can only imagine what it felt like. I don't know about you, Jason. I have never been to a sporting event where a massive injury took place. You know what I mean? And for our team or the opposing team. And I could only imagine what that feels like, to have that energy sucked out.
Honestly, it's crazy that you say that. I was actually at the game that Michael Irvin got
hurt on the field there at the vet,
like that real bad injury. Yes, I was at that game.
Wow, that was a lot. You must have even been pretty young for that.
I was a young pup.
Yeah, I was. The only game that had an emotional feel to me was I was at the Kobe Bryant tribute game. It was the first home Philly game after Kobe had passed away, and it was just dead silence. But you went into that game knowing that there was going to be a lot of emotion happening in that game, and the tributes and stuff like that, because they had already been pouring in across the NBA. But I can only imagine, just you see one of your best players just, boom. You just know. You don't need to hear from Topper. You don't need to hear from the Phillies that he's done for the year. He's done. As soon as you see that play.
Well, I think when you text me, I was driving home from work, or I was at work, I was at work because it was early. It was a game, and I worked. But I think that you text me later. Oh, well, they're saying that he was walking, but I'm not buying it.
Yeah. Carson Wentz threw a touchdown on a torn ACL. Donovan McNabb threw 4 touchdowns on a broken ankle. Sometimes the adrenaline gets you through the pain at first.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, just because he's walking doesn't mean it wasn't torn. I mean, you could walk on a torn anything, really.
There's plenty of people without insurance that have a torn ACL for the rest of their life. You know what I mean? and they manage through it. Anyway, so let's get on to what the Phillies do here, because the emotional aspect. I mean, like you just said, at least the season's still a week away. We've got a week to figure this out. We do. We're not the GM and the coach, but Topper and Dombrowski have got a week to figure this out. And in my mind, first and foremost, the first way you start this is you don't worry about going out and signing somebody or making a bold, unnecessary trade at this point. There are, in my mind, plenty of options in-house that we can get into that are probably worth the first shot. Baseball's a long season. The first shot should be to them. Oh, we got breaking news on the Eagles. We'll get to this in a few minutes then after we're done with this Eagles or this Phillies talk here. So do you agree that we should go to in-house before we go out-house?
So it could go one of two ways for me. I don't think you make a trade at this point. I agree. But if there are guys that have been reported to be on the bubble on other various teams. One name that I've heard thrown out there, Yuli Gurriel. He's a very decent hitter, and he's actually pretty good defensively as well. He may be cut on the team that he's on. If something like that were to happen, I think you could see a signing where it's like a depth signing. But I agree. I think you do still got to go with your in-house guys that you have. I mean, you have Derek Hall. Now, I know he's a DH, which I don't care. I would not be opposed to keeping him at DH. But you're going to have to find who's going to play first base, whether that's moving Alec Bohm over to first base.
And I want to address that.
I don't necessarily know if I want to do that, knowing that we've had so many guys. You talked about last year about Castellanos. Maybe the reason for his poor performance was that he was being, thrown all over the place when he was promised to be the DH. Now you're going to go and do that with Alec Bohm, who you're already saying, like, you need a good season from Alec Bohm, and now you're going to change it up and put him at first base. I don't agree with that. I
agree. Everybody's first reaction was Alec Bohm at first base, Sosa at third, and my instant reaction was he finally figured out how to play third base. He finally figured it out. And you saw as he got more confident last year, his bat got better. Why mess with a good thing
now
and move him to first base? In my mind, Alec Bohm stays the third baseman. In my mind, that has to be, if you're going to put Sosa at third and mess with Alec Bohm, why not just put Sosa at first base? If Sosa's such a great defender that could play everywhere around the field, I mean, first base should be easy for him to pick up. So you leave Alec Bohm at third, in my mind, your mind, and then you piecework first base together. So I'm going to give you a couple ideas. I want to know what you think of these ideas, if you like any of them more than not. Obviously, Derek Hall could platoon first base /DH. He's probably not going to play against lefty starting pitching, at least at first. So you won't even have him at all in the lineup at first. Sosa could do it, I think. You could platoon Sosa and Bohm. We agree that that's not the idea. Josh Harrison, veteran guy that we signed for $2 million to be a bench piece. He's a career 272 hitter, hit over 270 last year. He's a multi-time All-Star. Only played one game at first, but he's got games at second, short, third, left, and center, and right. He's played 6 positions. He's caught one game. He's pitched 3. He's literally played every position on the field throughout his long career. He's having a good spring. I think Josh Harrison, he could probably figure out first base pretty quickly. That's option 1 in my mind. Option 2, and this is going to piss a lot of people off, and it's probably not going to happen. He's having a very good spring, and never really played first, but he played everywhere else on the field when he was here. Scott Kingery is having a very good spring. That's option 2. Bold option 3, another guy that's having a great spring, he was like kind of fringe whether he'd go back to AAA or stay up here, and that's Cody Clemens, who's got pop. Out of all the guys I just mentioned, he's the one that's potentially got the pop in his bat. He's not going to hit 30 home runs. Now, he's a middle infielder, but again, a second shortstop type player, should be able to pick up first base pretty easily. And most players at some point in their life played first base to, in high school or Little League. So Clemens, Kingery, Josh Harrison. They're my 3 guys. I think the 3 of them were battling for the last bench spot. Now I think 2 of them can make it, and one of them could, hypothetically, be your everyday first baseman. Rank those ideas right there.
If I'm going to rank them, let's go Josh Harrison 1, Cody Clemens 2, Scott Kingery 3.
I know nobody's going to like the Scott Kingery idea.
I'm not buying Scott Kingery. I'm honestly, I think he's maybe a trade piece. Maybe he's.
You ain't gonna get anything for him as a trade piece at this point.
I actually like all your ideas, Phil. Now I have one that, and I don't know if it's even feasible, and I don't know if the guy's even ever played a game at first. I wanted to go last night and deep dive into it. How about if you move Kyle Schwarber to first base?
I think he has played first base at some point in his career.
So I'm not saying do that, but I was just thinking about it last night. I'm like, could you move Kyle Schwarber there, and then you still have a guy you could put in the outfield, because obviously you have.
All right, so here's his numbers. So in his career, we'll do that. He's played 0 at second, 0 at third, 0 at short, 687 in left field, 0 in center, 4 in right field. He's caught 26 games, and he has played 11 games at first place. When he got traded to Boston in 2021, he did play 10 games. He played 25 games at the end of the season with Boston. He played 15 in left, 10 at first. So he does have some recent experience at first base. That thought did cross my mind. Because you could put Sosa in left field. You could put Guthrie in left field. You could put Scotty Kingery in left field. I thought about it, but again, just like Alec Bohm, Kyle Schwarber figured out left field pretty well last year. He got comfortable. He was better than – he's not the fastest, fleetest of foot kind of guy, but he makes the important plays out there. I think it's similar to other sports. You don't make a negative in one position to fix another position.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably, the way it's going to go. I mean,
so listen, Brandon's saying he actually knows what it looked like when he was there. So I guess that's a big no then. He like I said, he played 10 games according to the chart. I guess they weren't 10 very good games according to Brandon.
Listen, I appreciate the feedback. I was just throwing it out there because
John Madoric. Kingery is having a good spring, but really not driven the ball. Clemens over Kingery. Yeah, I mean, Kingery probably needs to change the scenery, but you can't really change the scenery because he's got, based off of his pay and his contract, this is his last year on his deal, but very few people really want Scott Kingery at this point. That's why, if anything, using Scott Kingery at this point would just kind of maybe increase his trade value. Maybe you can actually find something for Scott Kingery if you can get him producing at a decent level. I don't know. I was just trying to find on the team guys that could play the position defensively and actually hit. And Scott Kingery at one point was starting to develop some pop in his back. So I don't know.
If you want my honest opinion, I love Edmundo Sosa, and I love what he's done this spring. And I think he is a guy who I'd love to see his bat in this lineup on a daily basis. So if there's any way that they could get him to play first base, I think that's the fix. If you throw Edmundo Sosa there, then you could keep Derek Hall as your rotating DH.
Here's another one. I didn't think of this specifically but I was thinking more Garrett Stubbs at first base because he swung a really good bat as a backup catcher. But yeah, I mean, if Stubbs is hitting at the level as a backup he was last year, wouldn't it be great to protect Real Muto's knees once or twice a week and put him at first? I'm pretty sure he's done it before. Yeah, see, Kyle, we disagree with this. You do not take Bohm, who just developed confidence at third base, flip him, make him play a new position. I mean, he's played it once or twice in his career, but you don't flip Bohm and change everything. If you do anything, you leave Bohm there and you play Sosa at first because he's been used to bouncing around the field. You don't want to mess with Bohm. You want to keep his confidence as sky high and just keeping him at third base. At least that's what me and Jason believe. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. What do you think about JT Realmuto once or twice a week?
I mean, I think JT Realmuto, I think we talked about that long term. Like, JT kind of possibly being able to be a first baseman because you look at these guys that catch. I mean, they do not have long careers. Yeah. And he's approaching it. How old is Realmuto? Is he 28?
Yeah, I think he's right around 30 years old. Somewhere right around that.
So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. Listen, you're right. I mean, that's why they pay, Dave Dombrowski the big bucks. He's obviously going to make the decisions. We're just. He's actually. I thought he was 30. You thought he was 28. He is 32 years old, JT.
Holy smokes! He's a lot older than I realized. I put him at 30, but 32 now. I don't know. I think whatever they do. Yeah, thanks. We were second behind there on that one. All right, so I mean, I know I saw you tweet them out. I think they've talked to the Rockies already for CJ Cron. Won't cost a lot, expiring contract. Gurriel, I don't think he makes the Marlins. Has an opt-out if available.
Yeah, they're the two names that I had mentioned.
I just think that you've got enough options in-house. You don't need to make, John, in my opinion, a rash move. If somebody gets cut and you want to bring them in to compete in the rotation with all these names, I think that's okay. But I don't think you got to go out and trade anything for anybody at this point, even if it's a back-end minor leaguer, because you've got options in-house.
But to John's point, CJ Cron makes a lot of sense in that he is on an expiring contract, so obviously it wouldn't be like you're trading the house to get a guy. And the Rockies are in sell mode already.
Season hasn't started yet, and you're already in sell mode?
No, I'm saying, but CJ Cron is actually, if you look at his numbers, he's actually like almost like a Rhys Hoskins clone. It would be like basically getting Rhys Hoskins in the lineup.
Well, let's look at Baseball Reference on CJ Cron here. All right, last year he had 29 homers, 102 RBIs, 257 average. He had a 783 OPS, so right around 800. He's an 800 OPS in his 9-year career. He's had two really outside of last year, he was already right around that 80 RBI, 25 home run mark for most of his career, 250 hitter.
He's going to give you, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying.
He does have actually an eerily similar profile to Rhys Hoskins. Really eerily similar. Now, where's his walks on this list here? Does he walk like Rhys does? Because that's something that I always loved about Rhys Hoskins. He doesn't walk only 43 walks last year. The one thing about Rhys Hoskins that I always liked was the fact that he was always on base, whether it was hitting or drawing the pitches. He always was able to see the plate and take pitches. I think the thing is, in the CJ Cron idea and bringing somebody in, I'm against it. But the one positive about it is all these in-house options, none of them combined are going to hit 30 home runs and 80 RBIs. And you know what I mean? Like, can any of these guys that we're talking about physically replace the production of Rhys Hoskins?
And that's where listen, I'm not saying make a trade, but I'm saying it's there. Right. I know that the Phillies had already talked, I believe, a year ago to the Rockies. Like, the Rockies are definitely, like, they're one of those teams that we talk about that are like dumpster fire, that just always have talented players and never do anything.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. So there's two other things I want to talk about this before we move on to the Eagles. Oh, well, so we're going to have another comment coming in here in a second. Cron does strike out a lot more than Rhys Hoskins. He struck out 164 times last year. So you're not getting the walks and you're getting more strikeouts. So that's a negative for sure. So the first thing that I thought of, and I know a lot of Twitter eventually thought of after this Rhys Hoskins injury, was the amount of pressure now on Nick Castellanos. So here's the thing. You start whoever, Sosa, Cron, Hall, whoever we decide to start at first base. You start them at first base. They're not going to duplicate Rhys's production. But if Nick Castellanos does what he was supposed to do, and we get that jump in his production, that can help offset it. The pressure is now on Nick Castellanos to bounce back massively this year, correct?
Absolutely. And I predicted him too, so I'm hoping that his bad spring isn't a precursor.
We start to turn it around a little bit here at the second part of spring training, because the other thing I wanted to talk about was the lineup, like what you do with this lineup. No, it's pronounced however I want to pronounce it. Just wait till you hear me talk basketball and how I pronounce Giannis Antetokounmpo, okay? I pronounce names how I choose to because I can't pronounce them the right way, okay? I have an awful habit of mispronouncing. I called Bradley Falter for 6 months before somebody made me realize it. I pronounce it how I want because I can't pronounce it. Because Castellanos, here's the thing. You lose Hoskins. He was going to be your 2-hole hitter again, or he was going to be your 5-hole hitter, protecting Kyle Schwarber and cleanup. Castellanos was going to bat, 7th? some people projected 8th in the lineup. Well, now Castellanos probably has to move up and fill that number 5 spot. So now you or whatever. Now you got to go something like Trey Turner, Alec Boehm, JT 3, Schwarber 4, Castellanos 5 now. And if Castellanos can't recapture some of that former glory, now we're in trouble. So this is going to put so much on Castellanos because without Hoskins in that lineup, if Castellanos can't do it, who are you hitting in the 2 or 5 hole? I mean, that's a big deal.
You know me, Phil. I'm not an analytics guy. In fact, a lot of times I bash analytics, but I do respect those analytics people that bring up numbers and stuff. And I saw some guy, and I follow him on Twitter, but he basically did like a projection scale of like Derek Hall on what he would have had he had Rhys Hoskins been hurt, as opposed to if he plays more. And he like did a projection, and I think the total home runs that came out were like 22 home runs if Derek Hall plays 400 at bat or 450 at bats. But obviously, you're going to have to live with the strikeouts because Derek Hall's strikeout percent is 31%. So Derek Hall, like, listen, he is a talent. The guy can hit the ball. We know he hits the long ball. Mm-hmm. We saw it last year in a small sample size, but I'm just not ready to kind of.
Are you going to be ready to put Derek Hall in the 5 hole on this team until Bryce Harper comes back?
No, but if he keeps hitting home run, I mean, he's been hitting a lot of home runs in spring. I think he has 6 now. So
I can't say I'm against this, Kyle. I mean, but this does not look as good as Hoskins in that 2 hole and Boehm in that 5 hole, or Boehm in the 2 hole, Hoskins in the 5 hole. That's the problem. Like now, I talked about the other day on this show. I don't know if it was when you were here or somebody else, that, do we want to rush Bryce Harper back? Well, now we kind of need Bryce Harper back sooner, because without Bryce Harper in this lineup, and now without Rhys Hoskins, it's still a really good lineup, but it might not be a good enough lineup to compete with the Braves and the Mets for the NL East at this moment.
No, I mean, listen, like, this is what sucks, Phil, because every year it's like, can we have nice things? Like, we were all excited. We had our hopes up. We said, this is the lineup.
America.
You had like 3 lineups that you produced yesterday that all looked great. Like, this is what we could do with before Harper. And now it's like, fuck, Rhys is gone.
Dude, this really ruined my whole entire day yesterday. My day-to-day is already ruined. Like, I don't know how to, and again, everybody watching, I appreciate it, but if you don't watch regularly over the last 2 years, and we've been doing this like 18 months this morning show, I've been one of Rhys Hoskins' biggest supporters. I think his value to this team is like way more important than people realize. And now he's out and everybody's realizing it. And it's like, and knowing that he's probably not going to be back in Philly next year because he's a free agent. It's heartbreaking. It really is. And yeah, it's the life of a Philly fan. Life of a Philly fan sucks sometimes, Jason. It really does, doesn't it? It sucks to be that's why when we win, Jason, we celebrate and party harder than
that much sweeter. Yes, I agree.
Much more sweeter.
But it's such pain, and we're seeing it with the Sixers. That's why I never got my hopes up, because I said the one thing that I consistently worry about is injuries. And now we saw James Harden and Embiid now both apparently like why
can't have something good happen one time?
Why can't it just go right?
Can't we have a stressless? Even when we won the Super Bowl in 2017, we had to deal with the Carson Wentz ACL tear. Like, it's like, even when the good happens, there's always some bad there that like kind of makes it worse. It drives me nuts.
Even in that Super Bowl game when the Patriots went ahead and we were like, no, we're like, why?
Oh, man. All right. Well, I am sure we'll hear more about this Hoskins situation. I think we'll see who they start today, tomorrow. We'll see in spring training this weekend kind of an idea what they plan on doing with this Hoskins situation. So we'll get a better understanding over the next couple of days. Maybe next week when we do these shows, we'll understand a little bit better. But I want to swing the pendulum to Eagles and Midnight Green here. because that was originally today's Football Friday. We haven't talked Eagles in a few days. I wanted to plan on spending a lot of time talking Eagles. And, Brandon was very kindly, and I've been distracted because I've been trying to read about it, off to the side. Adam Schefter, Eagles are giving All-Pro Lane Johnson a 1-year extension onto his contract, okay? So to really recap all that, hang on one second. I just had it up. So basically, he is now signed through the 2026 season. He is now where was I just had the freaking tweet up, and now I don't. It's basically now like 4 years now, his deal, or 3 years and like $80 million. I'm sure this is done because it probably frees up a little bit more cap space for this Eagles team. Real quick, last comment on Hoskins. Maybe he comes back on a cheap prove-it deal next year. That'd be nice. We'll see. Maybe that's the way we keep him in Philly. He wasn't going to be able to be afforded here in Philly, but now if he proves he comes back on a cheap deal, we do. So this Eagles Lane Johnson deal, it was reported yesterday, Jason, that already the Eagles are still about $13.5 million under the cap still. So there's still money to be spent for Howie Roseman. But this Lane Johnson extension, keeping the best right tackle in football, making him the highest paid guy, adding an extra year to the end of his deal. In my mind, it's got to have been done to maybe lower his cap hit this year too as well. But you can't quantify the importance of having the best right tackle locked up. He hasn't shown any signs of letting up. He hasn't given up a sack in 2+ years. Smart move from Howie Roseman, making sure. I didn't even know he needed to be locked up long term, but extending that contract, smart move from Howie Roseman.
Absolutely. I mean, Lane Johnson's probably my favorite player, other like non-star,
non-skilled
weapon. I shouldn't say star. Non-skilled.
He is a star.
Player.
He is a star in my mind.
He's Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Hall of Famer.
Without a doubt, he's a Hall of Famer.
I respect him a lot because obviously you know my struggles. Right. Him speaking out with mental health, and I totally adore people like that are right. Players that come out because it's good to see. It makes everybody see that they're human, just like everybody.
I'm trying to read this, my man. My man Jimmy Smith, who loves to do the cap. The restructured and extending saves them. If I'm reading his chart right, saves them $10 more million on the cap. I don't know if that's accurate or not. It was something he had posted before, and now he just reshared it again. I don't even know if I read cap stuff right. I am not a cap expert.
Yeah, I don't know how. He's very plugged into that.
Yeah, he's really good with the numbers and stuff like that. Yes, we will need but see, I don't know if we'll need $8 to $10 million for draft picks, Kyle, because I still stand by the fact that we're not drafting at 10 and 30. We're going to make one first-round pick, somewhere between 15 and 20. We're going to trade back out of 10, and we're probably going to trade back out of 30, depending on, how the board falls. That's how I feel. Does this eliminate speculation? Yeah, absolutely. In my mind, I mean, to me, it guarantees he plays 2 more years, Scotty. I don't know if he'll play the 3rd year of that deal, but he definitely will play the next 2 years. You almost always give a guy 1 extra year to contemplate it. So even with the $8 to $10 million that Kyle says that you need for your draft picks, if this saves 10.5, you had 13.5, means you got 24 million. Say they need 10, you still got $14 million to play around in free agency, and we need that $14 million because there's still a lot of holes on this team. But the big news yesterday, and I thought the Eagles conversation today was going to center around, I wanted to talk about Bijan Robinson, the young running back that's coming out in the draft. Everybody's hyping him up. And Jason, I don't follow college football. I've not seen one game of Texas this year. I've seen the highlights everybody are sharing, but that's all I've seen of Bijan Robinson. And I wanted that to be the start of the Eagles conversation. But we have to start with Lane Johnson, and then we have to start with the rumors that Ezekiel Elliot released the 3 teams he's down to deciding to playing for in 2023. And instead of me talking that, Bijan, that's what I want to talk about. Because I'm against a first-round running back. You are against a first-round running back, Jason. But the conversation and the hype has got me believing, why the F not? Why not go out draft Bijan Robinson, have the absolute best offense in football, and why not? But instead, we've got to start with Ezekiel Elliott. Now, this Ezekiel Elliott rumor, Jason, to me, I have not heard one thing about the Eagles interested in Ezekiel Elliott. Not one rumor floated around in this. To me, the rumor that whoever it was, Schefter or Passan or whatever major national reporter reported this, to me, the report smelled like an agent that's not getting enough interest in his client, releasing something to the media to maybe drum up more interest. Because there's been no Ezekiel Elliott rumors to the Eagles anywhere. So why all of a sudden is this happening? So to me, it smells like a leak. And secondly, I don't want anything to do with Ezekiel Elliott. I don't care. I've been a big Howie supporter for 2 years now. I've changed my tune. I'm a pro Howie guy. I will instantly flip to an anti-Howie guy if he brings Ezekiel Elliott. It will be a big, big, big mistake.
Yeah. First of all, when you said agent speak, I was right with you. And then
doesn't it sound like that?
I saw quite a few people, and maybe they're not like Adam Schefter's, but I saw a couple people that are check mark, noon kind of guys. But I'm not one of them. I'm talking about guys that know.
You're a check mark.
Plugged in people that have posted things that have come true.
People with sources
say that was not true. That the Eagles did not even talk to Ezekiel Elliott. It's definitely a as you said, agent speak or whatever.
It's like advertising for your pizza shop. Advertising for your client, trying to drum up some interest with
just throw the Eagles name in there because it'll make the Cowboys pissed off, and it'll also tell other teams,
the Jets in there. The Jets don't even know what they're doing with Aaron Rodgers yet. They can't go out, but maybe the Jets are interested. I don't care. I just think it. So John chiming in saying he signed the Bengals. That was the other team. I couldn't remember the Bengals. He was teammates with Burrow. That's fine, but you got Joe Mixon. So Joe Mixon and Elliott. Is that really the 1-2 punch you want there? I mean, you had the Joe Mixon, Sam, the Perrine guy. You had a 1-2 different type of runner. I don't know. Look. So Ezekiel Elliott, to me, this has nothing to do with the anti-Cowboys. This has nothing to do with the DeMarco Murray debacle when he came to the Eagles. Ezekiel Elliott's on the decline.
He's
massively on the decline.
He's washed.
Yeah.
I saw some numbers yesterday about his last 6 games. Actually, I think it was Scotty that posted.
No, well, maybe he shared it. It was Sam Wagman put out a tweet with all his last 6. I'm going to page through Swagman's stuff here. That's at least where I saw it. All right, yeah, here it is. His last 6 games last year, he carried the ball an average of 16 times for 58 yards, a 3.6-yard carry. So it's 16.55, 3.4. 19 for 37, 1.95. 8 for 10, 1.25. 13 for 27, 2.08. 10 for 26, 2.6. You just go off his last 4 games.
Yeah.
He averaged only 2 yards a carry the last 4 games of the year. The guy doesn't have anything left in the tank anymore.
Listen, I don't want anything to do with Ezekiel Elliott. And back to your original point, Bijan Robinson. Let me tell you one thing about
Bijan or Bijan?
Bijan. Okay.
I don't know. Brandon, you want to call me out for another name pronunciation? Go for it right now.
Bijan Robinson, Bijan, whatever you want to call him.
B-Rob. We'll call him B-Rob.
Here's my thoughts. Okay. Everybody wants to crucify and say it's a big mistake to take first-round running backs.
It is.
And here's where I'm going to tell you where that's true. When the Giants took Saquon Barkley with the 2nd pick in the draft, that was a mistake. Now, would you be saying that it was a mistake if Saquon Barkley dropped to number 15 and that team took Saquon Barkley? I wouldn't, because Saquon Barkley was still one of the top players in that draft class.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to use the example here. If the Eagles had the 2nd pick in the draft and they drafted Bijan Robinson, I would probably be freaking out because I would say, well, we could get a defensive tackle there. We could get a quarterback if we needed one. Obviously, teams that need quarterbacks, they usually go high. But if the Eagles could trade back from 10 to 13 and draft Bijan Robinson at 13, and he's the 2nd best player in this draft, other than you're talking about teams that are going up for quarterbacks.
Right.
Bijan Robinson is a stud. Listen. He's on a Saquon Barkley level. Like that's the kind of running back he is.
So here's the thing. Like, and you say trade back to 13, whatever. There are some people, and again, I haven't seen enough footage. I just see the highlight clips on Twitter. There are people saying he's going to be one of the two. He's one of the two most. If you just drafted on pure talent, it's him and Jalen Carter, the defensive tackle that's got all the off the field issues. That they're the two best players in the draft. Now Carter, because of his off field issues, is falling, and Bijan Robinson because no one drafts a running back. So how do you manage that? You've got 10 and 30. You've got boatloads of picks next year. You don't want to draft them 2. You can't because somebody's going to draft a quarterback at 2. Do you risk waiting till Bijan's if Bijan's there at 10? Do you risk trading back and hoping that no one takes him 13, 14? I've seen people taking him in mock drafts as late as 18, 19. Like, where's your do you how you play this game? Like, or do you just say that's the guy we want? We're just going to get him at 10.
Well, I wouldn't be opposed to that if they did that. I'm saying my point is that
right. My point is you're not comfortable drafting a running back at 2, obviously, whatever, and Bijan won't go to. But where's your level of comfortability start? Is it 10? Do you hear rumors and trade up to 8 and get them at 8? Or is that too far? Like, where's your comfortability start with drafting an elite running back like Bijan Robinson?
In the Eagles situation, they already have their quarterback. They don't need a quarterback.
Right.
And I'm looking at it. The only other position I say to me that would be worthy right now is you want that defensive tackle since you lost, obviously, Javon. But I think to be able to get a running back on a cheap deal for 5 and own him for 4 to 5 years with this offense, you already have Jalen, you already have, A.J. Brown, you have Devonta Smith. Obviously, you have to give him an extension soon. But to have that weapons around Jalen, I think that's the move that Howie needs to make. And I think it's the move he's going to make.
Here, Scotty brings something up here. And I think this is I was going to actually ask this exact same question and pose it here. What if Jalen Carter starts dropping? And you're sitting there at 10. You've got a guy with Blake Carter, one of the probably the most talented player in the draft, but massive off the field issues. Massive question marks about his character. Whatever. I don't even want to dive into that part of it. But you also got Bijan Robinson. Do you take Carter or you take Bijan?
I'd be happy with either one.
Kyle has decided to correct me. It's Bijan. Okay, it's Bijan. All right, whatever. It's Bijan from here on out now. Do you take Carter? You take the risk. And then take 30 and some of your future picks and trade back up and get Bijan. Do you just go all in on this draft? Is it that talented?
He could. We know how he's a master.
I don't know.
He always comes up with something every single year. I remember last year when we did the draft show, it was you, me, Scotty, Dylan. I forget who else was on the show. But I remember when that trade went down, I think it was Dylan was like, A.J. Brown.
I think him and George had to actually get off the air to celebrate and then come back.
We weren't expecting that. No. We weren't. Nobody knew. We had heard his name floated out there, but nobody expected we were getting A.J. Brown in that draft. Right. My point is that Howie could do anything. But if both of those players are there, I think I'd be happy with either one. Because if Jalen Carter drops to 10, it'd be hard pressed not to take that guy.
But see, here's the rest of this whole issue is, there's still a full roster. There's still holes on this roster.
I got you.
You know what I mean? And Bijan Robinson would be fantastic. And I was 100% against it. The world is convincing me to be okay with it. But there are holes. You need a defensive tackle. You need a safety. You need linebackers. You need multiple.
But how often have we been in these positions and we've crucified Howie for drafting for need when other players, you look at those draft classes, you say, if we would have went with just the right guy, the team would have been better sooner. I get it. Yes, we have needs, but when it comes to first round, I think you got to go best player available. You have to, unless it's best player is quarterback and you don't need a quarterback. I get that. But you don't need a running back.
Great point right here from Scotty. Great point. Does Bijan add years to Hurts' career?
Absolutely.
Now, I don't know, like, again, Scotty, I don't know anything about Bijan. I don't know if he's a good pass protector or not. Does he do well in the pass blocking portion of it? I don't know. That's why some people were talking about Ezekiel Elliot, because he's a good pass blocker. I'm not bringing Zeke here, burned out Zeke for his pass blocking ability. But he definitely, maybe instead of 18 rushes a game for Jalen Hurts, maybe he's down to 10 on some of those big games. He's that good. But what I was getting at is there's still a lot of holes on this team.
Yeah.
You've got 12 draft picks next year. You still got after draft picks and the Lane Johnson restructuring, you probably got 10, 15 millions in cap space to maneuver. If you're going to go all in and draft someone like Bijan Robinson or Jalen Carter, or whatever, go all in on the elite of the elite, okay? Then don't you have to then start looking at next year's draft and start trading some of those picks instead of filling free agency? They brought in the Eagles so far this week. Justin Evans, a safety, Nicholas Morrow, a linebacker, both depth pieces. Instead of just those kind of moves, now don't you have to start talking about using some of your future assets to continue going all in now? What do I talk about all the time on the show? Timing in sports and going all in is a necessity at the right time. It's the right time still. The NFC is why it's the Eagles, then the 49ers, and then nobody else. So then don't you have to start talking about, you got a safety from Tennessee, you got a safety and a linebacker with the Bucks that everyone's floating rumors to go get them in trades. Do you just have to go all in on all these 1 year end of contract type guys and just trade your assets and try to get that Super Bowl without worrying about the future? Because you need draft picks in the future. You're going to need cheap young players. But if you're going to do Bijan, if you're going to go all in, now you got to go. If you're going to go all in, you got to go all in. It's not like all in but hold one chip back just for safety.
I think you're right, and I'm not opposed to that, because like we've seen years where Howie has traded assets, but I have faith that he's going to do the right things. Like if he does do that, he's always going to have his eye on where he can like get those assets back. He does.
Yeah.
I mean, and we've seen it.
I think that's a great point.
I think I just look at guys and I say to myself, when you have an opportunity to get one of the top players in the draft at that position, it's hard for me to say no to that. Whether it's Bijan Robinson, whether it's Jalen Carter, if either of those guys drop to 10, I'm definitely pouncing. And if the Eagles could possibly get both of them, that would be.
I mean, that's unreal. It's an unrealistic expectation.
It would be a heist, though, if they did. Because
see, and here we're talking about building out the rest of the team. Everybody's talking about trading Quez Watkins, and I agree. We got to upgrade Quez Watkins, but Quez Watkins is young and he's cheap. He's on his rookie deal still. You still need right now. He's your third guy. Britton Covey's your fourth guy, and Devin Allen is your fifth wide receiver right now on this team. I don't know. Is Greg Ward still on the team? I don't know. But you kind of. Like, yeah, we want to upgrade Quez Watkins, but you can't just trade him because then you need two wide receivers. Right now, you still need one more viable wide receiver, whether it's a 3 or a 4.
Apparently,
you can't move Quez until you replace Zach Pascal first.
Apparently, this draft is extremely deep at wide receiver. Like, there's not a lot of high end wide receivers, but there's a ton apparently in the second, third, and fourth round.
I can't even remember the guy's name. I saw a couple people. I told you guys. Don't be surprised if the Eagles draft a first-round wide receiver. Before I was convincing myself of Bijan, I was trying to convince everybody else. There is one wide receiver. I don't even know his name. It's got a hyphenated name to him. I don't know anything about him. He's the Ohio State wide receiver, and he's a top 10 prospect. Don't be surprised if the Eagles draft a top 10 wide receiver again. I mean, what? That's more of Howie's MO than going out. Like, Howie's MO is signing Rashad Penny and then drafting a wide receiver in the first round.
It is.
That's demo. Yeah, we're just going to go with his initials, JSN. I think that sounds about right.
Jackson something.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. After seeing last Saturday, I feel like you go all in while you – absolutely, Scotty, and I agree with this 100%. You go all in my opinion, when the time is right. The time is right. The time is now. Isn't that like a song or something like that?
Is now.
Isn't that John Cena's intro? The time is now. I can't even think of it right now, the words. But yeah, I mean, you go all in, which means you've got 12 draft picks next year. You trade 5 of them. You get the players in here you need on defense to keep that defense piece together. You go get Bijan. You go get a Bijan or whatever his name is. You go get a first-round wide receiver, whatever it is. I was reading something, Scotty, about JSN that we got the full name. Jackson Smith Jigba. Is that how you say Jigba? We're going to say Jigba. That's going to be my way. You go get him. I read something. Does Jigba sound good? Jackson Smith Jigba. I saw something yesterday, Jason, that he plays best in the slot, and that people were comparing him to Justin Jefferson in an article yesterday. And I was like, well, Howie already messed up and screwed up and missed out on Justin Jefferson once. So he might just be like, I'm not going to miss Justin Jefferson again. Let's go get Jigba. You know what I mean? So I don't know. But you definitely go all in the rest of this free agency and draft if you want. Do you want another Super Bowl or not? Your time is best now. It might not be here in 3 years when Lane Johnson's gone, Kelsey's gone. You know, Slay and Bradbury are 30, 32. They're going to be 35 in a few years. You go all in now when you can.
We've talked about surrounding Hurts with talent, and we've talked about how Hurts is your number one. He's your franchise. He is your franchise, Hurts.
Yeah.
So why not just get him more toys? Because ultimately, like you said, if our defense drops back down into the, I know we were top 5. Say we drop down into the top 10, top 15 defense, but our offense gets better. I mean, how is that a bad thing? Because to me, it's like, okay, let's just score more points and let's protect Jalen. As you said, to Scotty's point, if you get a running back and now you have that rotation, but you still have a bell cow type guy that can handle the load, that will save Jalen's career. You will not have to run as much. And not to mention putting a guy like, you already saw what Miles Sanders could do behind that line. Now you're going to talking about putting a guy that's elite like a Bijan Robinson who could be, I'm not saying he's generational, but he's got that MO. Like, he's got all the tools.
The hype is there.
You put him behind that line, it's like, what, dude? And then you have guys like backups, like, a dart throw at a Rashad Penny, who all of a sudden now, by the way, he's healthy next year. You're looking like you have an offense that could beat anybody.
Yeah, the only concern about going all in like we're talking about, the only concern about that, doing everything possible just for the Super Bowl this year is next year the Jalen Hurts extension comes into play. Whatever that extent, they haven't done it. It'll get done. I'm not worried about it. I know nobody's worried about it. But then next year when that extension goes into play, and I know Howie's a magic man when it comes to finding money, he's the reason why people think the salary cap is fake. But you're going to need young, cheap options when that Hurts extension goes into play. If you trade too many assets to go all in this year, then what do you do next year? That's where if you have 12 draft picks. If you trade 6 or 7 of them and you end up with only like 5 next year, what do you do the year after that? You know what I mean? Where does the youthful refresh of this team come from? That's the only concern with going completely all in.
I understand. But you know what?
F it. Go all in. Let's get that Super Bowl
dog. We have dogs.
Yeah. Go all in no matter what. It's just the only way to do it, right? I think I am going to, if I have free time at the pizza shop today,
sure,
I am going to try to find a way to do a mock draft and find a way to get myself Bijan Robinson and Jigba and Jalen. I'm going to try to get us 3 first-round picks. I'm going to trade everything. I'm going to find a way to make a trade that I'm going to get every guy I want on this team. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to find a way to get it done because I think I've convinced myself. I'm against it, but I'm so for it now that Bijan needs to be in Midnight Green. Here's the funny thing, Jason. I forget what the exact number is, but you're only allowed to bring in X number of players for pre-draft workouts. You can't bring everybody in. You can only maybe 20 guys whatever the number is, you're only allowed to bring in X amount of guys for private meetings. They brought Bijan. They used one of their allotted interviews on Bijan Robinson. You're not doing that unless you have some thought process of drafting that guy. Right?
I mean, there's a ton of people. Like, I think Todd McShay last year, I mean, he's one of those major draft guys.
He's an idiot.
He mocked the Eagles last year to taking Bijan. There's been a ton of reports that I've read that the Eagles are very high on him. There's so much smoke there that it's hard to ignore it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's kind of crazy. Yeah. Where'd this comment come from? I haven't seen you all week. Need a lot? No, I don't know if I have. I don't even remember. You have? Okay, Kyle saying, statistician saying, you get 30 people to bring in. Well, the Eagles, you got that's people from, everywhere, and from all teams, all the rounds. Like, you can only bring in 30 people. If Bijan's being one of them, there is some intention to draft the guy. I did not get my bangers and mash last week. That kind of ruined my St. Patrick's Day, my man. That it did. I don't know. I think there is definitely some serious discussion. Any tips to get past Sandman? I don't know. I don't have any tips for you, my man. There's got to be some serious discussion going on behind the scenes to draft this guy. There really does.
Left, right, left, right.
Left, right.
BA start.
Oh, my God. Oh, you come in at the end here and you totally throw us completely off track here with this conversation. I appreciate it.
Love it.
All right. So, have you been convinced yet that Bijan Robinson is the right pick?
Honestly, every day I convince myself more. And, yeah, I would love to see this guy. And if we do, I will go out and get his jersey. Since I have a Miles Sanders jersey and he's now gone.
Yeah.
Then I have a Darius Slay jersey.
I'm sad about Miles Sanders being gone. I won't lie.
Yeah, I'm upset about it. I like Miles Sanders a lot.
Yeah, Miles Sanders is a lot better than people realize. I was trying to go up here. There was another comment early in the show about Ezekiel Elliot. Yeah, I mean, I definitely would cry a lot more if Ezekiel Elliott was brought in here and Bijan Robinson wasn't.
Oh, I'd be pissed. Then I'd be mad. I would be angry.
Yeah, I would be too. All right, we're going to wrap it up there. Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. It's interesting. I really got to figure a way to mock draft, get all these weapons in here and see what I could do. I hate the mock draft. I hate the mock draft.
Go on PFF, mock draft.
I will. Panthers getting Thielen. Yeah, I mean, Adam Thielen's an underappreciated, underrated guy. Will they be good? I don't know about that. But they're in one of the worst divisions in football, so they might contend for their division. Yeah, if you push, yeah. They already eliminated. They're trying to eliminate the tush push. Ezekiel Elliott basically needs to be tush pushed to get over the line. When he does the jabs, just fighting. We got actual information coming in here for you. Yeah, we got information coming in on how to get it done for you. Everybody, make sure you hit the like button, the subscribe button on the DSM Media YouTube page. I'd greatly appreciate it. Turn your notifications on so you don't miss when we go live. Trending in the AM is live every day, 8:30 in the morning. You don't want to miss it. We got a big Sixers road trip starting this weekend. We got Golden State. We got Phoenix. Will or won't Joel Embiid or James Harden play tonight? I don't know. He shouldn't. But will he? We'll find out. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Monday we'll be back. We'll be talking Sixers. We'll see what happens this weekend. We'll see if I find a way to mock Bijan and all these guys to the Eagles. We'll see what happens there. What do we got coming in here? If your Eagles get Bijan, I mean, if you're a Panthers fan, you know what it's like to have a big-time running back in Christian McCaffrey for all those years. Everybody have a great day. That is Jason Voorhees. I am Phil Stivo. We'll talk to you Monday. Hey, let's go Birds. And I'm going to miss you, Rhys.
Gonna miss you, Rhys.